Hi there, welcome to No Nonsense Whisky. My name is Vin PF, and on today's episode we've got a very special sample Saturday actually, and we're going to be checking out a trio of Octomores, the 15th editions if none less. I like to try Octomore in bars when I get a chance, but I've never actually owned a bottle. Always a little bit expensive for me, but yeah, they're pretty cool. Yeah, for those of you who don't know, this is a kind of like Brook Laddie initiative, and it's the kind of the heaviest peat. That's what they're aiming for. They're aiming for the most ppm that they can possibly fit into whiskies. This has been going on for at least 15 iterations now. I think we might even be on 16 now. But yeah, I think these are pretty much all 5 years old. That I don't know if they deviate. I didn't check every single one out, but that's my kind of given number. So it's all fairly young, but you've got to be into your peat, right? That's the big thing. What I'll be doing today then is I'll be checking out all three. I do have a little bit of water to have a little swish out between, but at this sort of level, this sort of ABV, it's probably not going to be doing anything, but I will show willing. I've poured these out. I haven't actually tried any of these yet at all, or smelt them, but I will say this room absolutely stinks at the moment. So yeah, we're in for a bit of a treat, I think. But yeah, these are expensive bottles, so I'm glad to have been sent the samples, is the truth, and I'll be, hopefully I'll be enjoying these, but yeah, it's nice to have larger ones as well. I've got 100 mils here today, so, perhaps even could have got away with reviews, but, you know me, I like to do these kind of off-the-cuff sample Saturdays with kind of minimal editing and stuff like that, but yeah, alright, let's get into it then. The first one then, you might see I've got the other two down here, I'll swap them around as need be. First one then is the 15.1. I'm pretty sure, again, I'm probably going to make mistakes in this, but I'm pretty sure that each release has a 1, 2 and a 3. I'm not sure if that is always the case, but yeah, we'll get into what each one of them means and so on and so forth. So yeah, the 15.1, this one sells for 140 quid. When I checked on the website, it was still in stock, but I'll be dropping links below if you're really interested in picking some of these up. I imagine if you were interested, you probably already have, but yeah. As always with Sample Saturdays, I've got my little note card down here, so I'll probably be referring to that a fair amount. So the first one then is 108.2 ppm, parts per million. That's the phenols we're talking about. Again, I'm pretty sure that's the pre-distillation level, but I'm sure somebody will correct me if I'm wrong, but that's just my general understanding of it. And this one's been aged for its years in ex-bourbon and re-charred ex-bourbon. 59.1%, which is a bit of a stonker. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I'm pretty sure these are all natural coloured and non-chill filtered and all that jazz, but yeah, looks pretty good to me. Let's try the nose in. Probably the worst glasses to use for this, but these are the glasses I use for Sample Saturday, so consistency is key. Let's get into it. Okay. Actually, not as heavy going as I expected. I mean, I poured these out probably 10 minutes ago just to give myself a little bit of a chance, but I mean, that smells absolutely lovely. As always, I like to go onto the palate before I go back to the nose, so let's do that. Oi, oi, oi. What a beaut. I mean, you guys know I love my peat, but that's actually really nicely sweet as well. I mean, look at the legs on. I don't know if that comes across on the camera at all, but the legs on that, beautiful. Really thick and viscous. Okay. So on the nose, I mean, I don't know, is it even worth talking about the peat? It's very heavily, but I mean, I've smelt worse peat for sure. For me, this mink is just beautifully well balanced actually. Nicely smoky. I would say it's ever so slightly on the medicinal side of things. It isn't so bad. It isn't like, kind of, I guess in the States you would call it band-aids, over here plasters. A little bit of that. But it's mostly burnt out wood, with a little bit of life left in it. So, I don't know, when I use my pretentious notes, I talk about bonfire, levels of bonfire, and this is like it's like a good hour after the last flame went out, so there's still some heat in the wood there, but it's starting to get a bit acrid. That's definitely where we are with this. But there's some sweetness to it as well. That ex-bourbon is coming through quite nicely, so, I mean, I wouldn't be so bold as to say I'm picking up vanillas and caramels and honeys and all that sort of jazz, but definitely nice and sweet. Let's try on the palate. Yeah, for me, I mean, The peat and the ABV are mingling in super nicely. Again, I'm getting some sweetness there, which is definitely the ex-bourbon coming through. But again, I wouldn't be so bold as to say I'm sitting there getting anything in particular in terms of tasting notes. The peat and the ABV are definitely overshadowing everything, but it just has that nice sweetness to it as well. Difficult to draw down on, but lovely, as I would expect. Let's have a little cursory swish. Like I said, though, I don't think there's any point in that whatsoever, because, you know, it is what it is. I'm going to put this one out of the way so I don't confuse it. Okay, next one then. We've got the 15.2. I'll show you what I got. Worth noting as well that the first two come in the solid black bottles. That would have been on the thumbnail before you clicked it. And the third one comes in that kind of frosted glass one. Not sure why that one's been differentiated, but I mean, as I say, I don't know. I do know it's probably because of the excessive ppm, but we'll get into that. So this one here then is a little bit of a jump up. It's 155 quid. Again, 108.2 ppm. This one's been finished or aged, sorry, at least in US casks. So I mean, I imagine it's probably refill bourbon, but it seems a bit odd that they wouldn't say that, seeing as they have with the other one. So it might be virgin. Don't know. Again, it seems a bit odd that they didn't specify exactly. Some red wine casks and some ex-Cognac casks. All things I like, you know. So 57.9%, so a little bit of a dippy. But yeah, I'm not sure how many bottles of these are available. A fair amount, I imagine. It's quite popular, apparently. I think a little bit lighter, actually. I don't know. That might just be my eyes. I mean, just. It's as near as damn it, isn't it? Oh, okay. Do you know what? I will say I wasn't expecting to pick up too much difference between these, because I've never tried two together before, ever. I mean, I literally have only tried these in bars, and I just see Octomore on the shelf and I go, I'll have that, please. Don't write it down. I don't find out what number it is. I mean, I do at the time, obviously, but my memory's not that great, and I probably should write it down, but I'm not that kind of whiskey drinker. It's for the enjoyment for me. But yeah, so interesting. I think looks pretty good. Again, let's try that nose again. I've got to try the palate. Okay. That's bonkers. That's doing things to my palate that my brain does not understand. Because, okay, here, so this is where my thought process is going with this, right? So, again, probably irrelevant talking about the peat. We know it's going to be peaty. So if you're buying this or drinking it, that's a pre-given. It's the other things that are going on that are the interesting part of it, right? Because I've got this theory. I mean, I'm getting off piste a bit now, but like when we're talking about resolution on TV screens, for instance, the human eye, again, I'm not going to cite any scientific facts, but I'm given to understand that like the human eye can't really distinguish the difference between like 2K and 4K, for instance. We see it as smoothness rather than kind of resolution. And I think that the human palate, everyone's different obviously, roughly tops out at about 70, 80 ppm as at an absolute maximum. Anything on top of that kind of doesn't really make any difference. But I'm here for it nonetheless. So on the nose, I'm getting a little bit more malty biscuity vibes from this one than the first. And there's almost like a farmyardly element to it. Keep that in. Hay. It's not as sweet as the first one, which I think is weird because I think Cognac's pretty sweet, to be honest, in my experience. Maybe the red wine is dulling it out a little bit. Let's go back to the palate. Definitely a bit more sweetness to the palate. That red wine, I mean, I'm making guesses, to be honest with you. I think the red wine brings in a little bit of, not sour, but it's in that sort of vein. It's more tart, I think is probably the word I'm looking for. It's a challenging dram. And not because of the ABV or the smoke. Which, again, neither of which are kind of blowing me out. I genuinely thought that this would kind of blow my palate out and water would be pointless. But actually, I'm being proved wrong directly on camera. But I mean, that is lovely. But not my favourite yet. I mean, it might be one day. I think it's one of those ones where, like, mood drives what drams I want to pick from the shelf, right? And if I had both of these, there would be days when I want a kind of more, I don't know, more lively tasting experience, and there would be days when I wanted something that I could really sit and chew into, and that's the difference between those two so far. Okay, let's move on. Cursory drink. Okay, third and final then. We've got the 15.3. Which is everything ratcheted up. It's including price, right? It's 195 quid, 307.2 ppm. Sure, fine. It's their second most heaviest ppm that they've had in their lineup. Not sure what the first one was. I'm sure somebody will be able to tell me. It's ex-bourbon and ex-oloroso, 61.3%. These are all very good numbers. Unfortunately, that is more expensive than the most expensive bottle I've ever bought. Not by much, actually, but it is. 185 including fees was the most expensive bottle I've ever bought. And I do not intend on breaking that record anytime soon. I've been sent more expensive bottles, thankfully, but yeah, I don't intend on breaking that anytime soon. So I 100% would not have bought this, nor any of them, to be fair, but the 140 quid one does look appealing. Let's try on the nose then. I mean, it might be that it's the third, you know, but actually, I'm not really getting that much peat off that. It smells quite similar to the first, actually. Hang on. No, okay, so it's definitely not nose blindness because I've just gone back to the first one and I'm getting stonks of peat. So yeah, it's between the I was about to say between the Oloroso and the bourbon, I'm getting more on the bourbony side of things. But just as I said that, a little bit of that kind of characteristic dried fruit peeks through, just about peeked through. Let's go to the palate. Okay. I mean, oh, that palate couldn't be more different to the nose. Well, it could be more different, but in terms of expectation versus reality, expectation is quite understated, actually, quite light, not that peaty. Can't really pick up much Oloroso, sherry, bourbon, anything. Smells quite nice, but you know, if I'm honest, the word that's coming to mind is boring, especially in comparison to the other two. The nose. Let's try that palate again. Phenomenal palate. That ABV, the smoke. I mean, I guess all the wood is mingling in together. I don't really get much Oloroso on that. Maybe a bit of nuttiness on the back end, but all the dried fruits, I'm not getting any of that. The ex-bourbon, though, is shining through. I'll have a little sip of the first one again, just without cleansing. First one's definitely sweeter. But the ABV on that is glorious. Oh my days. Yeah, I mean, it's so strong. Actually, it's getting a little bit antiseptic-y on the back end. A bit numbing. Nothing wrong with that. Okay. Amazing to do all three of these in a row because, like I said earlier, I've not been able to do that before. Favourites though. I think the 15.2 is definitely my least favourite. I mean, all of these are phenomenal, and I'd be more than happy to drink loads of that, you know. But if hand on heart, all three of these together, the truth is I don't know between 1 and 2. I want to say 3, but my brain is factoring in the price difference. And I think for the price difference, actually, I would go for the 15.1 most times. Because if I had this, I like to share my whiskey. But if I had the 15.3, I don't think I'd let anybody else drink that. Is the sad truth, because it's quite lovely. It is quite lovely, irritatingly lovely, I would say. But yeah, I think the difference is not enough for me to warrant the extra 60 quid. I'd rather have the 15.1 and another bottle of whiskey of quite good quality for 60 quid as well, I might add. But yeah, again, I don't want to take away from it, because they're all three of them phenomenal whiskies. 1 and 3 interchangeable, I think, in terms of a favourite. But yeah, there you go. Let me know. I know we've got some Octomore fans watching, so let me know if you've tried these, what you think of them, which one was your favourite, or if you're not a peat fan, are you going to try one of these at one day? Because I think you should eventually. You know, don't be put off by these high ppms, because it's sort of irrelevant, I think. You know, I have tried peatier tasting whiskies than all three of these, without a doubt. But still, a tasting experience nonetheless, and one that I'm very glad to have done. And we'll be repeating, I think, as well. I think these are going to go on my little shelf, and I'll probably drink all three of these together every time I do it, because why not? Why not? There you go. That's the end of the video. I'll see you again on more, and I'm going to pick up number 1, I think, to say cheers to you. Cheers.